So I can tell you why that figure is weird. This figure depicts the child version of a famous character in Japan known as Supersonico. Now, according to Wikipedia, Supersonico is typically portrayed as an 18-year-old college student. Of course, she has to be 18, barely above the legal age. And this character is absolutely hyper-sexualized. Like almost every single image that I could find online, it was very, very sexualized. And you know that there are people out there who really deeply get off to stuff like this. Especially a character like this whose every image and portrayal is hyper-sexualized. I mean, I challenge you, Google the name and look for an image that isn't dirty in some way. So when a character is typically portrayed in ways like this, which leads people to develop crushes on the character and, do things while they're looking at the character, if you know what I'm saying, and then you release a child version of that character as a toy, covered in some sort of white cream, I'm not even going to really describe the rest of this thing. I think you guys can tell what is so wrong about this. And I just cannot believe that they would actually not only create this toy, but go on to sell it, promote it to people, and try to turn this into something that it never should have been in the very first place. So that's why it's disturbing in my opinion. If you want to hear me rant more about topics like this, listen to my podcast, The Conspiracy Files, available on all streaming platforms. The show's also on YouTube.
These people get trapped in an elevator and they have no cell reception. So they use the call button to call the building concierge. But the concierge refuses to call the fire department.
You guys refuse to call the fire department because you want to save money? Is that the case?
The procedure is for the security on site to do that, but I've let them know.
Yeah, but call the fire department. It's emergency.
So they're stuck in this elevator for an hour and a half. They were apparently in there so long that the woman who was in there with them is about to pass out. So they start begging.
We have a woman that's about to pass out. What's not the emergency?
I need to get out, please, please, please.
But the concierge still refuses to call the fire department to let him out, saying, "Just wait on our technician."
The fire department will also wait on the technicians as well.
So why is she refusing to call the fire department? So apparently the fire department will fine the building if they have to come out too many times for things like elevator problems.
You're not calling it because it costs $10,000 to get fire department there. It's a way to save money.
So a lot of these buildings will do everything they can to avoid calling them. And people want to call the fire department because, firemen get there fast. And as part of the fire code, they have access to the elevator room and they have elevator keys to like every operational elevator in the city. So when the concierge said firemen wait for the technician,
the fire department will also wait on the technicians as well.
Hell no, they don't. Firemen don't wait for anybody. Fire department will cut your damn front door open just to get you out. Those guys don't play around. So eventually, you can guess what happened. The woman passed out, or maybe she's taking a nap. I don't know, the footage doesn't actually specify. But the concierge never called the fire department, and the people trapped in the elevator had to wait an hour and a half for the building maintenance guy to show up and let them out. I'm gonna take a wild guess here and say that that building is getting sued.
Every once in a while, animals will do things that not even science can fully explain, and apparently, that's what happened in 2005. Because that's when a 12-year-old Ethiopian girl was kidnapped and beaten by a group of men who were trying to get her to marry one of them. Nasty work, repugnant even. After being missing for over a week, it was getting to the point where her family was just expecting the worst. But eventually she was found, except with a different kind of predator. Because according to the story, they found the injured and traumatized girl surrounded by a group of lions, almost like they were guarding her. And once police arrived, the lions calmly retreated back into the forest like they clocked out of a shift or something. Which has led many people to believe that not only did the lions chase off her attackers, they stayed with her until help came. Now what a lot of scientists believe actually happened is that the little girl's cries might have sounded like that of a lion cub, and since lions are naturally wary of people, honestly, couldn't blame them. Once the police, aka other humans, arrived, that's when the lions decided to fall back. But we've also seen lions do things like this. I'm not gonna act like I know the answer, but sometimes you gotta just stop asking why and just appreciate what's in front of you. The more you know.
Scariest urban legend from each state, part 4. Robert the doll from Florida. A young boy named Eugene was gifted this doll as a birthday present. Eugene had Robert sleep next to him every single night, until a random night where Eugene woke up and saw Robert sitting across the room from him. After that night, things changed. They noticed every night that they heard footsteps in the attic, and something running up and down the stairs. He was inhabited by some demonic spirit, even having the neighbors say that they saw Robert looking through the window of the attic every single night. Robert is currently in an extremely safe spirit box in the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. It's stated if you make eye contact or take a picture with Robert without his permission, some seriously bad things can happen to you.
Disturbing facts that'll keep you awake. Apparently 30% of people see strange things in a hallway when it's pitch black. Are you one of those people? And I found this next one pretty disgusting. But did you know bed mattresses gain weight over time? Due to all the dead skin, sweat and bodily fluids we have. And did you know unlike other predators, bears won't try to kill you before eating you. A bear will just start eating straight away. But the good thing is, if a bear is following you, you'll most likely hear him. But if a mountain lion is following you, you're most likely done for. And while on the topic of animals, did you know tarantulas travel in swamps of tens of thousands? And apparently there's a town in Australia where this phenomenon actually happens once a year, and it's terrifying. Normal things you should never do in Japan. Alright, so first you should never blow your nose in public, because apparently it's considered impolite and people might start staring at you. So try finding a private place to do it. Next, it is pretty common to wear shoes indoors, right? But in Japan you have to remove your shoes when you go into someone's house. If you don't, it might be the last time they invite you. And I'm sure if you're from the US, you've given a tip before, right? But if you do it in Japan, it is considered rude, and some places don't even accept it at all. But finally, if you have tattoos but you want to go to public baths, you will most likely be denied, because tattoos are still associated with organized crime, such as the Yakuza and other gangs.
Creepy facts you probably don't know, but you're about to. Part 2. At one time, doctors thought that babies didn't feel pain. It took up until 1987 for the American Academy of Pediatrics to declare that it was unethical to operate on babies without anesthesia. So that means for years, babies were forced to just sit there and suffer through surgery without any form of pain control or anesthetics. So yeah, that's kind of scary.
Hearing those, I'm sorry, but that's why
you should never do this. This is 17-year-old Michael Dumas. He was on a church trip to Florida with some of his friends. While on this trip, they went to Pompano Beach, and he would be buried in the sand as you see here. He'd soon be unburied and all would be well until later that night when he would wake up in the middle of the night and be itching like crazy and sweating. At first, this would be labeled as an ear infection and he would be sent home with drops. But it would soon be obvious that that's not what it was, as he started to develop these raised, bumpy rashes. And he became pretty lethargic, just wanting to sleep all the time. It got even worse to the point where he was having these big, nasty blisters. And that's when he'd finally be diagnosed with cutaneous larva migrans, which is pretty much dog or cat hookworm. So pretty much these work by the dog or the cat pooping in the sand and contaminating it, and then not long after, these microscopic larvae hatch, and then you step in this contaminated sand and you end up looking like Michael. After all of this, he ended up developing a staph infection as well, and if it's not bad enough just him getting infected, 5 others from this trip got infected with hookworm as well.
Disturbing body facts that might ruin your day. If you have a surgery where your other organs need to be moved around, they might not function a day after the surgery because the body assumes they're just dead. Next, the brain is the last thing to function when you pass away, meaning in most cases you'll hear, feel and smell your last moments on Earth. And it's possible to die from a pimple. Let me explain. If a pimple gets infected, let's say from you itching it, the infection could get into your bloodstream, causing you to have an intense fever. Then a few days later you will start having seizures and vomiting everywhere, so try not to play too much with your pimples. And finally, it's possible to get brain damage from a toothache, because if you have a tooth infection, there's a high chance of it getting to the brain if it's not taken care in time.
Celebrity chef and host of Worst Cooks in America, Anne Burrell, was found dead in her New York home this morning. Dead at the relatively young age of 55. If you don't know who Anne was, she was the host of one of America's most popular food shows, Worst Cooks in America. Side note, I was actually cast on this show a few years ago. They flew me out to New York City. I got to meet the cast that ended up filming that season. Now, they did end up replacing me and then flying me out back home. I never made it onto the show and I never got to meet Anne. But if I would have been given the chance, I would have loved to have competed. Anne was born in 1969 in New York. She discovered her love for food at a young age. She attended various culinary institutes before moving into the restaurant world, and eventually she made her way into television, and finally at one point was cast in the starring role in the television show Worst Cooks. Now, just 5 days ago, Anne posted this photograph on her Instagram, and strangely enough, she looks glowing. She looks incredibly happy and healthy, and an official cause of death has not been released yet. I couldn't find any information about this anywhere, and so it's really unknown exactly what happened here and why it happened. But Anne is definitely going to be missed by all. RIP to her. And yeah, if there are any more significant updates, I'll be sure to hop on and make another video for you guys.
The Teletubbies conspiracy theory claims that the show was inspired by events that happened in a Bulgarian mental facility called La La Land. Children there were isolated from the others and placed in dark rooms, but apparently 4 of those children died on the same day, inspiring the Teletubbies. Lala apparently had facial disfigurement and was isolated for 5 years, and that inspired the Teletubby Lala. Toite was a deaf, facially disfigured kid who was tied to a fence outside and had gotten frostbitten from the cold. This inspired Tinky Winky. Donka, who was starved and was very, very sick, would lay in his own vomit for days, inspired Dipsy. And finally, Paulina, who had fell into a fire and was roasted alive, inspired Poe. But you won't believe the reason they were called the Teletubbies. You see, the children's main source of entertainment in their rooms were their TVs. They were as small as a small iPad. Sometimes when they heard their toys was going to be confiscated, they would hide them in their mouths. And they had just found out that the institution was going to get rid of the TVs. And they didn't want that, and they couldn't hide the TVs in their mouths. So one of them had the great idea to hide them in their stomachs, because that's the only place they could fit. Mind you, these kids are a little bit not all the way there. So they came up with a plan to rip their insides out in order to fit the TVs inside and hide them. They tried it, and the next morning, the caregiver walked in on all 4 children dead.
Guys, you're gonna like this one. We have an internet magician, the card guy, who wants to get barbecued. Alright then. Man, first of all, you look like Tom Hardy if he worked at Applebee's. You look like a present day Screech. And bro, what is up with those big ass ears? Can you hear the future? Do you use a shower head as earbuds? And what does Neptune sound like? And that's a pretty sick beard there, Meth Rogan. Yeah, I guess if I did street magic, I'd want to hide my face too. And yeah, what kind of magic tricks do you do? I mean, you're pretty good at making smiles disappear. And do you call yourself card guy because you have to card the women you date? And what was it like being on that episode of Futurama? And was that you in that video screaming, "Just do it"? Alright, card guy, there's your roast, man. Hey dude, your magic tricks are really cool. Keep up the good work. But there's one trick I really think you should try. I want you to do that one that Siegfried and Roy did.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 5. Despite if you're using incognito mode, Wi-Fi routers actually keep logs of what websites you visit, and the owner of the router can check this whenever they want. So hopefully you don't have anything to hide. A woman in Russia had a shit ton of twins, triplets, and quadruplets with the same man, totaling to 69 children. Nice. Tarantulas taste like shrimp. According to some cannibals, the most delicious part of the human body is the eyeball, and they especially like licking them. The skin on your lips is the same skin that's on your butthole. Dolphins sometimes bite off the head of a fish and masturbate into the decapitated body. A bubble caused by false vacuum decay could be growing through our universe right now, destroying everything it touches, and we would have no idea because it travels at the speed of light. 2020, please no.
Scary facts you wish you never knew. There's a shack called the Devil's Toy Box in Louisiana, and for some reason people who go in lose their minds. You know the tingly feeling you get when you eat a pineapple? Well, that's because the pineapple is eating you. It has an enzyme called bromelain, and that enzyme eats meat, which you're made of. I'ma stick to watermelon. No one can comment on this video and get 0 likes. Sharks have been around for 420 million years, meaning they have survived all 4 big mass extinctions, making them older than dinosaurs, Mount Everest, and even some trees on this planet. Yet we could potentially see them go extinct in our lifetime. The person who invented homework came up with the idea as a punishment for his students. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on share, slide all the way to the end, click more, and if any apps appear before your contacts, you should delete it immediately. This is a photo of Lyndon B. Johnson. In it, he's being sworn as president, just 2 hours after JFK was unalived. And the woman he's standing next to is Jackie Kennedy, who still had her husband's blood on her shirt. Lyndon B. Johnson turned to his friend, Albert Thompson, while Albert smirked and winked back. The photographer who captured the picture called the photo completely sinister. Doja Cat scares me. Studies show that people who like and follow me get smarter every day.
Let's talk about one of the worst torture methods in history. This brings us to something called the tub. So as you see here, the chosen one would be crammed into a wooden tub with only their head exposed. They would then have milk and honey smeared and poured on top of their head and face. Then brings the flies. These flies and other insects just swarm to the person attracted by this milk and honey, and there they just continue to annoy the person, causing them extreme distress and discomfort. If that's not bad enough, then you're stuck in this wooden tub in agony with all these bugs all over you, and you can't move at all because you're crammed in there so tight. And to really just torture them even more, they'd feed the person over and over again, which, you know, makes you gotta go. And I'm sure you can imagine how that goes, with it eventually piling up until it's just covering all around you. This would then lead to the maggots and the worms, which come from this, and they pretty much just eat you alive. It's said the longest a person lasted in this was 17 whole days, and they pretty much decayed alive.
Now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. So the other day, a Reddit user posted this photo to Reddit. It's of his apartment at night. He had been complaining of hearing rustling noises in his apartment over the last couple nights. Many users thought they could kind of see something in this area of his kitchen, but I couldn't, so I looked at the brightened version. This is the photo brightened. And I know what you're gonna say, yes, it does look like Keanu Reeves, but look at how tall he is compared to the fridge. But it gets so much worse. This is a video he took of his apartment at night where you can see something happen to the light in the kitchen. But let's look at the brightened version. Yes, it's terrifying, but is it a ghost?
I found this while thrifting. Is this art or something else?
Careful when you're thrifting, or you might run into something like this. This, my friends, is a porcelain doll. Click the plus, drop a like, tag a friend, share with 3, or this might come after you. So it's actually stated that most porcelain dolls are actually extremely haunted, of spirits that don't want to be messed with. You see how it's perfectly woven? It needs to stay that way. Those knots are not meant to come undone. Who knows what lives inside of that doll? I think the best plan of attack is to put that doll back exactly where you found it. Hopefully it's not too late. Hopefully you didn't already take it home, or show people, or even try and open the doll all the way. Because if that's the case, well, things are gonna get really weird in your life. Everyone always jokes about the Annabelle doll, but if you think about it, it's in a giant glass case with pages from the Bible in it to keep whatever inside of it inside of that case. I would put it back before it's too late. 3 ways to survive a skinwalker. Number 1. Don't ever whistle in the woods. No matter if it's daytime or nighttime, that's a calling signal, meaning that you're letting the skinwalker know exactly where you are. Number 2. Pray as hard to whatever you believe in as possible. Skinwalkers are demonic creatures, being so that they were transformed this way because they are cannibals, and have killed before. Number 3. White ash tree rubbed bullets may be one of the only other ways to stop a skinwalker in its tracks. Of course, most people don't have those laying around, so if you're in an area where you think you may or may not be able to run into one, you may want to pack those just in case. Don't forget to like and follow for another episode.
This ride malfunction might be a symptom of a much bigger problem. This video shows the moment where the Atmosphere ride at Oaks Amusement Park in Oregon malfunctioned, leaving 28 people hanging upside down for 30 minutes. Hazen Hathorn was one of the riders on the ride, and a fun fact is that he doesn't have freckles. Those are all broken blood vessels that occurred from hanging upside down for so long. We don't know exactly why the ride malfunctioned just yet. There's still an investigation ongoing, but this is maybe a symptom of a much bigger issue that's happening. And that's the fact that in America, there's little to no regulations for theme park rides, meaning there's not really a standard for how often rides are maintained to be deemed safe. I literally just did a whole episode on this for the podcast where I talk about other theme park disasters that have happened throughout history. This picture is actually from a theme park ride test where the flume completely flew off of the ride, and that ride would go on to open and claim the life of a 10-year-old boy. And that's because the creator of the ride wasn't an engineer, he was just a hobbyist. But in America, if you can dream up a ride, you can make it. For instance, in Florida, parks with over 1,000 workers don't even have officials from the state inspect the rides for safety. Now, giving them the benefit of the doubt, no one died on this ride, and I'm sure it was made by engineers and not just some guy. If you want to hear about more theme park disasters that occurred throughout history because of our lack of safety regulations in America, you should check out episode 70 of the Heart Starts Pounding podcast.
Let's talk about this picture. Captured in 2008 by Daniel Young, this is one of the only pieces of evidence that this encounter actually happened. So Daniel was a custodian at Myrtle Elementary School where he worked the night shift. It's a pretty routine night. He's just listening to music when he's suddenly interrupted by the sound of a woman's laughter. He turned around and was terrified when he saw an unknown woman smiling from behind the corner. This was a locked school on after hours, so clearly she was an adult who broke in, so he tried to snap a picture to identify her and then chases after her. But when he turned the corner, she had already darted out of an emergency exit. Later that night, police are called to a home where they arrive at a tragedy. An unknown woman had broken into a nearby home where she knifed two parents, one who was the principal of this school, so brutally they were unrecognizable. One of the daughters who witnessed this woman before she got away described her as this person. Could this photo be of the same unknown woman? And what her connection is to the school and the principal, we don't know.
Kids who have unalived someone, part 4. 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante convinced her younger sister to go to the neighbors 4 houses down and convince their 9-year-old daughter, Elizabeth Olton, to come out and play. Elizabeth's mother was hesitant at first because dinner was almost ready, but she agreed. Alyssa's sister had no idea what her older sister was up to. Once she was in the clear and away from her home, Alyssa proceeded to strangle Elizabeth, as well as slit her throat and stab her in the chest, and then bury her in the hole she had dug days before. After committing this crime, Alyssa wrote in her diary, "It was amazing. Once you get over the oh my god feeling, it's actually pretty enjoyable." She was sentenced to life in prison.
Creepiest things kids have ever said. A woman drove past a cemetery with her 3-year-old daughter in the back seat every day. The 3-year-old kept telling her mom that people in the cemetery were waving at her. This went on for a while until the woman stopped driving past the cemetery forever when the daughter said that a lady wanted her to come in. A family moved into a new furnished apartment with an unsettling painting in the bedroom that kind of looked like hair free-flowing in the air. The 2-year-old son was being settled in for his daily nap until suddenly he said he didn't want to sleep in that room. When mom asked why, he said, "This painting looks at me and tries to talk to me, and I don't like it." A 4-year-old girl spent every day with her great-grandmother, and every day she'd go home, she'd say, "God be with you." One time when she was leaving, she said, "Go with God." Her mother tried to correct her, but she said it again. That night, the great-grandmother passed away. Follow for more of the...
Here is what your birth month says about you. If you're born in January, you're most likely a very serious, stubborn person. Everything needs to be your way and always done your way. With that said though, you're very driven and motivated to always achieve what you want. If you're born in February, it's most likely you're a very good-looking person. You're probably very academic and intelligent, but also very shy. If you're born in March, you're also probably very shy. Studies show that people born in March are also 60% more honest than other people, so you can always trust someone born in March. If you're born in April, it's most likely you're a very emotional person. You're also very loyal, close to your family and friends. If you're born in May, studies show you're an extremely hard worker who loves to get things done. You can be stubborn and always like your own company. If you're born in June, you're a kind and compassionate person, always there for literally anyone, no matter time, day, whatever. If you're born in July, you're probably a comedian. You're funny and you're always making people laugh, but you've also got a very good heart and are always hard working. Part 2 coming later.
Disturbing and scary facts you didn't know. Part 2. A man named Francesco Lentini had 3 legs, 4 feet, 16 toes, and 2 sets of functioning male genitals. He worked for a circus and lived until the age of 78. During the early 1990s, a serial killer named Joseph Matheny owned a burger stand located in Baltimore, Maryland. After his arrest in 1996, he confessed to feeding his customers the flesh of at least 3 humans he had murdered. Now, you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on Share, slide all the way to the end, click More, and if any apps appear before your contacts, you should delete it immediately. Albert Fish, an American serial killer, boasted that he killed in every state and claimed to have had over 100 victims. What makes him even more sickening is that he sent letters to his victims' parents to tell them how good their children tasted. A new homeowner was shocked to find a rag doll boarded up in a wall cavity clutching a note saying she killed a family.
Urban legends that were proven to be real. Part 1. The Candy Lady. In the early 1900s, children in an unnamed rural town in Texas started to go missing, and the residents blamed it on the Candy Lady. The story says that she would go around leaving candy on children's windows, and eventually she'd lure the kids out with notes attached promising more candy. The story picked up steam when a farmer allegedly found rotten teeth in his farm, later found the body of a boy with his pockets stuffed with candy. Fall for next urban legend.
These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. There are thousands of old diseases frozen in the glaciers of the world, and global warming will eventually release them all. If a person dies in their costume at Disney, like Mickey Mouse, they have to be sat down on a bench so it looks like they're resting. Climate change is making spiders bigger. Some female spiders allow their young to eat them alive. Tooth in the eye surgery is when surgeons put a tooth in a blind person's eye to restore their sight. It was pioneered in the 1960s, and it actually works, and it's still being done today. The chances of a successful CPR outside of a hospital is only 7%. Cell phones are 10 times dirtier than a toilet seat. When you suddenly wake up during the night without any reason, there was someone or something staring at you. Yeah, there's a lot more, like for part 12.
We are dead. This conspiracy theory is going to mess you up. If you don't want me to ruin your day, just keep on scrolling. Go on, keep on scrolling. Trust me, you don't want to see this. Right, so for everyone that's still here, let's get into it. Right, so it's scientifically proven that when we die, our mind is still functioning. And it's true that our life literally does flash before our eyes. There's a 7-minute period of time where you will re-watch your entire life. But it won't feel like 7 minutes, it will feel like forever. It's also proven that there is no possible way that we could know we're in that state. What I mean is there is no way you would know you're dead and rewatching your life. You just think it's your life. What I'm trying to say is we could all be dead, laying in a hospital bed somewhere. And this reality is just our life flashing before our eyes in a weird way.
Did you know a teenager once hacked a military satellite using a school computer? In 2002, 17-year-old Jamie Brooks from Nebraska stayed after class, telling his teacher he was working on a science project. What no one knew was that Jamie had built his own software, using outdated manuals he found in a junk shop and code he copied from a cracked video game. One night, he managed to access a decommissioned U.S. military satellite and briefly redirected its camera. For exactly 42 seconds, it live-streamed a secret government facility in Nevada. A few people online caught the footage. One frame showed something odd. Not a person, not a vehicle, but a figure with glowing eyes. Within hours, Jamie's computer was fried. 2 men in suits showed up at the school. Jamie never returned. His family claimed he was sent to a special program, but no one ever heard from him again. To this day, the footage is gone. But some users claim fragments still exist, buried deep in forums, behind encrypted logins. So, what exactly did Jamie see?
Scary movies that we all saw as kids that terrified us. This is the movie Monster House. The movie is about 3 friends named DJ, Chowder, and Jenny, who discover that DJ's neighbor's house is actually a living, breathing, scary monster who eats innocent children and people. The house is owned by a scary and evil old man named Nebercracker. DJ, Chowder, and Jenny make it their mission to destroy the house so no more innocent people get eaten. But it turns out that the house is haunted and possessed by Nebercracker's wife, Constance, who died in the basement by getting covered in cement. This movie is extremely creepy and scary, and it's definitely one of my favorite animated scary movies ever. If you want to watch this movie now, it's actually on Netflix. But I must say, after watching this movie, you might have a hard time sleeping.
Yo, what's up? Here's some facts that will probably ruin your childhood. Part 2.
You guys remember Sleeping Beauty, right? Well, what if I told you that the original story went like this? It was a princess who was sexually assaulted while she was sleeping. The guy left, and the only reason she woke up is because she found out she was pregnant with twins, and the guy came back, and they fell in love without her even realizing that she was sexually assaulted in her sleep. You guys remember Pee Wee Herman, right? A pretty goofy character. Well, in 1991, the actor that played Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, was arrested for indecent exposure at an adult movie theater in public, meaning he probably pulled out his private parts and, well, yeah. You guys remember the Power Rangers, right? Well, how about in particular the Red Power Ranger, played by Ricardo Medina, who actually stabbed his roommate in real life with a sword and killed him. And finally, Peter Pan was written about the author's brother, who was 13 at the time when he died after falling and cracking his skull while ice skating.
Creepiest things kids have ever said. A man's mother passed away in a car accident when he was 6 years old. When his 2-year-old daughter saw a picture of her grandmother for the first time, she laughed. He asked her, "What's so funny?" She looked at him and said, "That's my special friend who sings to me." A man's 3-year-old daughter stood next to her newborn brother and looked at him for a while. She turned back to her dad and said, "Daddy, it's a monster. We should bury it." A woman and her 4-year-old son were out in public when all of a sudden he starts rubbing on her belly and talking to it. She asked what he was doing, and he said, "I'm talking to the baby." She informed him politely that she was not pregnant, and then he said, "There is a baby in your belly. I just saw it crawl across the floor and climb up into you." A woman's 5-year-old asked when he was going to be 23 years old. She told him in 18 years. He replied, "Well, I hope I don't die again because that's how old I was the last time I went to heaven." Follow for more of the
I'm gonna make your childhood even better, part 2. So we all remember Fred and Daphne from the Scooby-Doo movies, right? From these Scooby-Doo movies? Well, Fred and Daphne actually got married in real life and even have 2 kids together. Pretty cool. I'm gonna ruin your childhood, part 80. So everyone remembers Max from the Wizards of Waverly Place, right? Well, after Disney, he had some struggles. In 2014, he had a huge meltdown backstage at the Teen Choice Awards. A bunch of witnesses claimed that he yelled at a worker because the worker didn't know who he was. And it got so bad that he threw things at a staffer and stormed off, but it gets way worse. A couple years later, he was involved in a 4-car hit and run. His car smashed into 3 parked cars. But the craziest part is, after hitting the 3 parked cars, he just called an Uber and left the scene like that. And to make matters even worse, he got arrested for drunk driving just a little while after that as well.
52-year-old Texas resident Karen Davis got married, and then after the ceremony and after the honeymoon, she went through the process of changing her last name from Davis to McBride to match her husband's last name. After the change was done, the last step was to get a new driver's license with the new name on it. So Karen emailed the local DMV to set up a time for her to come in and make the change to her license. But after she sent that email, the local DMV immediately emailed Karen back, and they told her that they could not help her with this request until she resolved an issue. They very cryptically said it had something to do with the state of Oklahoma. And then at the bottom of the email, there was just a phone number they told her she needed to call in order to resolve this issue. She punched this number the DMV had given her into her phone, and then she let it ring. A few moments later, a woman from the Norman, Oklahoma District Attorney's Office picked up the phone and said, "How can I help you?" Karen told her, "Hey, I was just trying to get a new license in Texas. They told me there was some sort of issue. I don't know what it is, but this is the number they gave me." The woman from the DA's office discovered Karen's so-called Oklahoma problem. And after she explained to Karen what this enormous problem was, Karen literally couldn't believe it. Suddenly, everything in Karen's life made sense. For the last 22 years, Karen, who was incredibly smart and friendly and polite and never had a problem with anyone, had an incredibly hard time getting a job. Even jobs that she was extremely qualified for, she would get turned down for someone who was way less qualified. And then, in the rare times that Karen did actually get hired, she would always get fired for no reason. And so Karen never understood why she was being treated this way until now. It would turn out 22 years earlier, which is when Karen's hireability issues began, she lived in Norman, Oklahoma. She lived with a roommate, and this roommate was this nice young man who had a couple of young kids, and one weekend he went to the local movie store called Movie Place, and he rented the hit 90s movie Sabrina the Teenage Witch to watch with his kids. And after he was done watching this movie, he didn't return the VHS tape of Sabrina the Teenage Witch back to Movie Place. When Sabrina the Teenage Witch was not returned in a timely fashion, they pressed charges against the cardholder, and the cardholder was Karen Davis. The roommate had just borrowed her card. And somehow, these charges against Karen were never brought up to Karen. She was never contacted by anyone, and so for 22 years, she was technically a wanted felon for felony embezzlement. And so this was the reason she kept not getting jobs and kept getting fired from jobs. Karen worked with the Norman, Oklahoma DA's office and got these charges dismissed.